Hey guys, DC Network here, coming at you with another video. It's the worst kept secret within the industry right now that Warner Brothers Discovery is going to get sold. Whether it waits until mid next year once that split happens, or something happens sooner than that with this news that came out there last week that Paramount is trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery as soon as possible. Card above to that video if you haven't seen it and don't know what I'm talking about. But yet another report has started to circulate online, and that is that yet another player is entering the Warner Brothers Discovery arms race, and that player is Netflix. Yes, apparently Netflix is preparing a bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. This one's a little bit more interesting and confusing to me when you start to peel back the layers a bit. I discussed last week how Paramount, while I think it would be in the long run a good thing for Warner Brothers Discovery for that acquisition to happen, I just question the immediate future given that they'll be in a lot of debt because of that acquisition. But with a company like Netflix, I think they would be able to swallow the debt that Warner Brothers Discovery currently has, and I think them acquiring the Warner Brothers franchises that they own would be a massive thing for the streaming platform. It would instantly bolster their lineup of IPs, and they would all of a sudden go from having, a rather small library of Netflix originals. Yeah, there are some popular ones out there, but there's nothing really that to me jumps off the page, to all of a sudden having the entire library of Warner Brothers, everything from the Looney Tunes to Cartoon Network originals like Ben 10, Adventure Time, regular show, to the whole DC universe. Like, they would own absolutely everything, which again would be massive for them and really bolster their lineup. There's a few things from a content perspective and release perspective that we'll get into a little bit later if this were to happen, but where this all kind of falls apart for me is when you think about it, why would Netflix buy Warner Brothers Discovery as it stands today when they are a streaming platform? Warner Brothers Discovery has a boatload of cable networks. They have a lot of linear cable networks that would really serve no use to Netflix, as their entire business model is a streaming platform. Why would they want to own TBS or TNT or CNN or even Cartoon Network? Like, what would they do with all these cable networks when that's essentially who they're trying to compete against with their business model? It just doesn't make sense from that perspective, and that's why I don't think this merger or acquisition is going to happen. I don't think Netflix will end up with Warner Brothers Discovery just because of that fact alone. Netflix to me would make more sense for Warner Brothers if you wait a year, wait for this split to happen, then try to buy the studios and streaming platform and just merge that into Netflix, and all of a sudden Netflix content library would be absolutely massive. They have all these Warner Brothers shows. I'm sure they wouldn't be too happy that, the Wonderfully Weird World of Gumball is on Hulu, that Batman Cape Crusader and Steven Universe Lars of the Stars are going to Amazon Prime Video. I don't think that'd be something that they would be happy about, but that's neither here nor there. But I just don't see them buying this company, taking on all the debt that they would be taking on, the $35 or $36 billion that Warner Brothers Discovery currently has in debt, to then just offload all of the cable networks. Like, I would assume what would happen here is they would just take those as a net loss. They would buy them, then probably just shut them all down, or maybe they would try to spin those off and sell them to another buyer. Who knows? But I don't think this makes all that much sense for right now. I think how we said in prior videos that Sony was looking to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, card above to that video if you don't know what I'm talking about, they were only interested in the streaming and studios part of the brand, which is why this split is happening in the first place, because David Zaslav and crew know that, hey, we have a really lucrative business here with our studios and our streaming team. We're going to make that into one company, call it Warner Brothers, then we're going to split off all the linear cable networks, make it into another company, call it Discovery Global. They'll get all the debt, and hopefully we'll have a massive buyer come in here to buy Warner Brothers, and that will solve all of our problems. That's what they're trying to do here. And really the monkey wrench that was thrown into this equation is when Paramount came out there and said, hey, we don't want to wait for a split. We want you today. We want you as constructed currently. We don't need to have you go through this entire split next year. We will give you a boatload of cash right now to buy this company. And that's where the whole monkey wrench got thrown into the equation, because the plan was always for this company to be split, and I've been saying for so long that the split is happening for a sale to happen after that. That was the plan, but now Paramount's trying to get ahead of the competition, and now we're getting reports that Netflix is like, hold on, if you're gonna buy this thing now, we want in. We want Warner Brothers Discovery. We want all of their IPs that they own in their streaming platform. We're gonna merge it all into Netflix. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which I alluded to earlier in the video, is from a creative standpoint, I don't really know how this would work if Netflix were to buy this company. As we all know, and as I indicated before, Netflix's business model is they're a streaming platform, right? They release release content on Netflix, their streaming service. Of course, they started out long ago as a DVD. We'll mail you a DVD to your house and you can watch it and then mail it back and we'll mail you another one, but those days are gone. Now they are a streaming platform. The thing is here is Warner Brothers Discovery, while they do have a lot of content, they do own a lot of properties, part of their business model and just in general with all of these companies, all of these studios, is that they make a movie, generally speaking, for a theatrical release. Like, that's the whole point of making these big blockbuster movies, is you release them in theaters and then, you know, later on we'll get them on digital, we'll get them on home media, they'll go to a streaming platform. I do question what the model would be if Netflix were to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. Does that mean that every single Warner Brothers Discovery blockbuster film is going to skip theaters entirely and just go straight to Netflix? That would be a huge hit for the theatrical industry. Like, the movie theater industry would really take a massive hit from that, because obviously Warner Brothers is one of the bigger movie making companies out there. They're one of the bigger content providers. You know, I would put them up there with, you know, a company like Universal or a company like Disney. Those are probably some of the biggest production studios out there for movie theaters. And all of a sudden, if you take one of those away, what's going to happen to the movie theater industry? It could collapse. They don't have as many blockbuster films to get people to put their foot into the door. And what's going to happen then? Well, prices are going to go up for people who go to theaters. As it is already, movie theaters are very expensive to go see. I mean, when you think about it, a movie is what, like 22 to 25 bucks, and you can just buy the thing on DVD for 20 or buy it on a 4K Blu-ray for 30. So it's very expensive as it is already to go to a movie theater. We don't need those prices to go up even higher. And then the other thing that I find interesting is just, again, from the whole cable channel perspective, I'd assume they'd shut all those down, but I think the one positive to come out of this for Netflix would be, I would assume they would really take advantage of Warner Brothers Discovery's library. Like, the one thing we've seen with Cartoon Network in general over the past decade, I want to say, is they really aren't taking advantage of, number one, the properties they own, and number two, they really, as of the last half decade or so, aren't really producing new shows under the Cartoon Network umbrella, like new ideas, new properties. I think that would all go away with Netflix. I think we would start to see a lot of new creators come in here and make their own shows on Netflix under the Cartoon Network Studios umbrella. And the other thing as well is I think Netflix would really take advantage of the properties that Cartoon Network has at their disposal and start to revive some of them and bring them back for new audiences. Like, I could tell you right now, I think that Ben 10 would have an absolutely massive presence on Netflix if this were to happen. I could see there being a 6th iteration of Ben 10 meant for adults. I could see there being a preschool Ben 10 meant for little toddlers. I could see there being a, you know, regular Ben 10 reboot type series that is meant for kids ages 6 to 11. I could see there being a live action Ben 10. I could see them being spin-offs and whatnot. I think if Netflix were to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, Ben 10 is going to become a massive player on the service. And that's not the only thing. I think a lot of shows are going to have a huge resurgence on Netflix. I mean, immediately what happens there is Cartoon Network's entire library, once the deals expire with Hulu, will all of a sudden migrate to Netflix. Netflix has access to all of the streaming numbers, and they will see, okay, what shows are people watching on our service? Oh wow, there's a lot of people watching The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. We have Maxwell Adams on speed dial. Hey Maxwell, what's up? What's up with that movie you were talking about with David Zaslav and crew and Tom Aschim a few years back? You know, that movie Destroy Us All, whatever, Billy and Mandy, where they're aged up. Yeah, so tell us that idea. We're going to give you some money, make it happen, do whatever you want with it, and we'll put it on our platform. I think that's very much so what would happen with a lot of these properties is Netflix would be like, okay, well, Codename Kids Next Door is getting a lot of viewership right now. Call up Mr. Warburton. Hey, we're going to give you some money. Go make Galactic Kids Next Door a thing. I think that's instantly what would happen with Netflix, and we've already seen that with Netflix, to be honest. We've seen that with Avatar. The whole reason Avatar Studios was founded at Paramount, and they're making a Aang the Last Airbender movie, they're making Avatar 7 Havens, they want to make a Avatar movie and TV show season every single year, is because when the show got added to Netflix, Paramount saw the numbers it was bringing in. So many people were watching that series on Netflix, streaming it. They decided to partner with Netflix to make a live action adaptation of the original show. They then decided to found a whole studio surrounding Avatar. Obviously, like I said before, we're getting Aang the Last Airbender next year. We're going to get also Avatar 7 Havens at some point next year. I think a very similar thing would happen here with a lot of Cartoon Network and Warner Brothers Discovery properties. So overall, I think at the end of the day, a merger or acquisition like this would be a net positive for Warner Brothers Discovery. The reason I just don't think it's going to happen is because Netflix does not want anything to do with these cable networks, and I just find it hard to believe that they're going to have a more lucrative deal for Warner Brothers Discovery when Paramount actually wants the entirety of that company. They want the cable networks, they want the studios, they want the streaming platform, they want everything. Whereas Netflix really only has use for the studios. Like, they don't even need HBO Max. HBO Max would be shut down in this scenario, I would assume. So because of all that, well, I think that in the long run, this would probably be a positive for Warner Brothers Discovery, and we'd see a positive direction for the company. I don't think this is going to happen just because a lot of Warner Brothers Discovery doesn't really fit into Netflix's model, and it doesn't make sense for Netflix to take on $36 billion worth of debts, pay all this money to get all these cable networks, to then shut them all down. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So we'll have to wait and see, though. I think this is all just the start. I think we're going to have a lot more companies over the coming months come out there and say they're interested in buying Warner Brothers Discovery. I speculated before that Apple might throw their hat in the ring, Disney might even throw their hat in the ring, but I don't know if Disney would get, past the regulatory agencies and they would get past, the courts to get this approved, because that would probably be a monopoly if they owned all of Warner Brothers Discovery, but we'll have to wait and see on all that. For now, the news of the day is apparently Netflix is looking to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, and they're currently preparing a bid to do so. Anyways, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about all this. What do you think about the fact that Netflix is trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery? Do you agree with me that in the long run, this would probably be a good thing for Warner Brothers Discovery, but it's just not going to happen because it doesn't make sense for Netflix to buy all these cable platforms to then shut them all down. It doesn't fit their business model. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.